What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of The Game Plan. I am your host, the authentic one, Mr. Matty and I am joined, of course, by the analytics wizard himself, Mr. Evan Ringler. Evan, we're already looking at week 10 in the face. How's it going?
I'm doing great, Maddie. It's crazy that we're already through 9 weeks, and there's only 5 weeks left in our fantasy season. It's pretty wild, or the regular season at least. But happy to be here. Happy to talk ball with you as
Mm-hmm.
always.
It's going fast, but we got to cherish it while it's still here. And of course, we got an
Absolutely.
action-packed episode for everyone that's tuning in. We are here for all the, we're gonna here to help the fantasy managers. We're gonna play a little game, a little panic meter game, and then we're gonna talk about some of our biggest risers and fallers in our rest of season redraft rankings because we're in the nitty-gritty. Some call this the most important win of the season. Are you a contender? Are you a pretender? Should you keep checking your lineup? Should you do? Should you panic? Well, stick around because we are game planning for all that, ladies and gentlemen. So get out your pens and your pads and let's start preparing to get those week 10 dubs. Also, too, if you are in the chat, leave some questions and stick around to the end. We will answer every single one of these questions. I don't know if this is a question, my man Edward, but I am glad that you have those running backs. Very happy for you. That's awesome. But if you guys have questions, make sure that you go ahead and leave them in the chat. We will get to every single one of them at the end of the show. And if you're, trying to get, cut the line, make sure that we answer it before the end of the show. Leave a super chat. That's a way to get to the tip of the top. Typically make it happen. All right, let's go. I'm sick of this. All right, we're going to get into panic meter. I got 7 players for you, Mr. Evan Ringo. 7 players. We're going to each give our panic meter 1 to 10. Decimals very much encouraged here. We're trying to get down to the nitty-gritty. And so how we flagged these players, this is not just a subjective idea. We didn't just come up with our opinions of players we're frustrated with. We were using some of the analytics over at playerprofiler.com. In this tool, we're going to use the lifetime value. Now, lifetime value is a part of the algorithm that you've created. It's a dynasty tool, but I thought if we use it now, even a drop in lifetime value still indicates a value dip. So should people be panicking for redraft? So real quick, before we get into the names, go ahead and explain to the people how this tool was developed and how we can use it even in redraft leagues.
Yeah, so I wasn't the one that actually created this process, but I have done some refining of it in the last few years since I've taken over the dynasty algorithm that we run here, and it's all based on our seasonal projections, using that in accordance with the age curve to create 3-year projections for every player, and then turning those into a lifetime dynasty value, because we should be looking at dynasty generally in around 3-year windows. It can change depending on the situation, but that's a good place to start. And today we're going to be looking at who's gained the most and who's dropped the most. And that basically tells us who's rising the most in our seasonal projections and falling the most in our seasonal projections.
So whether you're a dynasty gamer, whether you're a redraft manager, this is going to help you kind of just hopefully get a bit of understanding, maybe confirmation bias, whatever you're looking for. But we're going to get into 7 players, whether we are panicking and what level of panic should you at home be treating this player with. So let's start with probably one of the players that's on a lot of people's minds, Mr. Brian Thomas Jr. Evan, what is your panic meter grade, level, rating, whatever you want to call it? How are you panicking, or how much are you panicking about Brian Thomas?
I went with a 9.3. Looking at this in a seasonal window, I think that Brian Thomas Jr. is almost completely cooked for this season. Unfortunately, I have been, talking him up and, trying to buy him in various leagues. But this recent ankle injury could be a serious problem. The rumors are that it's a high ankle sprain. We don't know that for sure yet. That's just rumors. But if it's true, he's out 3 to possibly 6 games during a crucial portion of the season. And that's not even including the fact that he's been horrible this year.
9.3. Man, I think my initial gut reaction, Evan, was that's a little too high, maybe a little too panicked. But I think when you kind of look at it, when you peel back the onion a little bit, look behind the curtain, I don't think you're too far off. I got him a little bit lower. I'm at an 8.7. Still very much panicking about Brian Thomas Jr. You look at his remaining strength of schedule, 26th amongst wide receivers. So not an advantageous matchup, on a per week basis from now to the end of the season. They just traded for Jacoby Myers. So however you feel about him, he's a pro. He's going to warrant targets. And the reports trickling out of Jacksonville is that the injury to Travis Hunter may not be long-term, was the phrasing I read, which means if it's the minimum 4-week absence, he only has 3 more games to miss. What exactly are you hoping to get from Brian Thomas from here to the end of the season? I imagine you're probably overshooting his value, and at this point, maybe he would be a complete sell because you think about the schedule, you think about the target competition, then you look at the analytics. At playerprofile.com, that player, his profile is pretty weak across the board. Now, I know he's been plagued by drops, and that's probably just an overcorrection of him kind of walking the tightrope as a rookie. But still, on top of that, 51st in yards per route run, 65th in yards per target, 54th in formation adjusted yards per route run, and 49th in yards per team pass attempt with a 1.43. He's not really separating. The separation metrics don't really show all that much there. He hasn't been dominant by any stretch. His contested catch rate, 30.8%. So even the things that we grew accustomed to, Brian Thomas doing, seems to be falling short in 2025. So looking at it, could it be just a lost season amongst many, many good seasons for Brian Thomas? Potentially. But for 2025, my panic meter is pretty high. So we 8.6, 9.3. We are both absolutely panicking about Brian Thomas. So real quick follow-up before we get to the next player. You got him in redraft. What are you selling him for? How aggressively are you selling him? Kind of walk us through your simple game plan if you roster him in redraft.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know if it's possible to trade him at this moment, at least until we find out about the injury. Because it would have to be good news about the injury, right? Like he's only going to miss 2 games. Then maybe you could trade him for something. It would not be much. It would be a running back 3, a guy that you don't really want to put in your lineup, but more of a bench piece. But I see that to be pretty unlikely. And depending on what we hear about this injury throughout the week, there is a very realistic possibility that Brian Thomas is a cut candidate in redraft leagues. Because like when he comes back, if it is a high ankle sprain, he misses 4 to 6 games. He comes back. Now he's competing with potentially Travis Hunter, definitely Jacoby Myers. And then, there are other options in Parker Washington, Brenton Strange, the running backs, etc. I just see him as a boom bust wide receiver 3. I think they're going to be only using him downfield because obviously he just has not been trustworthy at all over the middle this year.
So let's just walk it through. I think this is, I hate to drag out the conversation because, we're trying to be a little bit more, we're trying to be snappy, right, Evan? We're trying to get through this, but I think these type of players, and you need to talk it through because it's super, super important how we handle them. Let's just say it's a 4-week injury. The ankle injury takes him out 4 weeks. Goes on the IR. That takes him out for Houston, the Chargers, the Cardinals, and the Titans. That brings him back week 14, so right before the fantasy playoffs, where he goes up against the Colts, the Jets, who got a lot, that matchup will be a lot easier as the year goes on, and at Denver. So, we're putting him in a tough range. Now, if he misses 6, he comes back week 16. You have to be in the semis at Denver. Seems like a nightmare scenario because Pat Surtain will be back by then. So I think if we hear that he goes on the IR and you play in shallower redraft league like we mostly do in our casual family, office, friends leagues, home leagues, it's only 1, maybe 2 IR spots. If you don't have the room to stash, I think you cut your ties and move on. Someone's going to pick him up and it's going to kind of hurt your feelings. You just got to be okay with it.
He's a roster clogger, man.
He could, in redraft, he really is. And at this point, you're kind of just looking for a Hail Mary trade. Like, let's just say this. If you could move him, would you move him for like a temporary back? Let's call it. Would you move a Brian Thomas right now and redraft for Rashad White, who looks like he's going to start one more week? Kamani Vidal, who might be only in for a couple more weeks.
All of those, yes. I think you just kind of throw him. I would throw him into any trade just as a sweetener too. That's kind of how I look at it. Just I honestly I don't really want him on my teams because I don't see this going super well. We didn't get any news about the injury today, but he did not practice at all. I don't know when we're going to hear more because, the NFL, all they have to tell us is whether they practiced or not. So they could just string us along like this for another 4 weeks if they want to.
Brian Thomas Jr. currently seeing his lifetime value, so his value across the season projection go down about 49% from the start of the year. Not good to see. Let's move on to the next player who might be the other number 1 or 2 or 3 candidate for the biggest worry players. And we're going to talk about if you should be panicking, how much you should panic about TreVeyon Henderson, whose value has been dropping, falling since the beginning of the year, down 43%. But Evan, let the people know, how much are you panicking about Trey Hendo?
I'm going to go a little low on this one. I have a feeling you're going to be above me. I'm going with a 6.1. And I know it might sound a little low for somebody who a couple weeks ago, the entire fantasy community was just like the panic was out of control. It might have been a 12 a couple weeks ago. But now last week was encouraging for me, very encouraging. He saw a 75% snap share, 56% carry share, 70% route participation, and 19% target share. That is really good usage. And Ramondre is dealing with a toe injury. Usually a toe, that means turf toe is what it sounds like. Turf toe, that's a multi-week injury. Mm-hmm. And I think that TreVeyon is a solid starter in our lineups for the next few weeks at least. And also, it is the number 1 schedule for running backs rest of season.
You just absolutely illuminated the biggest reason why I am only putting his panic meter at a 3.2.
Wow.
Okay. I am not panicking about TreVeyon at all because that schedule is very exciting. First and foremost, the injury to Ramondre, I wouldn't be shocked if we hear that he goes in the IR this week. If he's projecting to miss this week with the turf toe, you could see them potentially put him on the shelf for 2 more weeks after this one. So a 4-week runway with this type of snap share, I do see TreVeyon Henderson kind of ascending and becoming a guy we're all going to be ranking highly on a weekly basis. Very excited to play. Last week, 12.7 fantasy points. It is his career high. He's had he's hovered around that mark 2 other times.
That hurts, man. Ouch.
It's brutal, but at the same time, 12.7 fantasy points was running back 15. It was a pretty low scoring fantasy
it was a
week.
Good week, just career high. That one hurts.
Well, if things take off, maybe this is just a small, little blip on the radar. But
definitely.
The analytic profile looks a lot better than the season projections, and sometimes with running back, I find that if you look at where they rank in terms of qualified running backs and things like yards per touch, things like juke rate, explosive rating, evaded tackles, if it's better than their output, I do see that kind of normalizing in the positive way, as opposed also could in the negative way. These things, it looks like he's a better running back according to his analytics than his fantasy points per game. And with the reps, with chances, 6 targets last week, if that can continue, this is a guy that I think we shouldn't really be panicking. With the schedule, the opportunity ahead of us, the draft capital is very juicy, and teams will eventually find their way to players who they've invested this much in. So you're not so worried. I ain't worried at all. Matter of fact, I'm trying to buy TreVeyon in redraft leagues. I think he's a perfect tier down type of candidate.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about this next guy here, and I don't know exactly. Maybe I might have jotted it down incorrectly in my notes, but I want to put the panic meter on T.J. Hockenson. Now, tight ends, they're so wishy-washy in redraft. I would imagine a lot of the fantasy gamers out there, a lot of the managers are, they've already passed the point of caring about T.J. Hockenson, but he's on a lot of benches. Teams are hoping he turns things around as they stream the Theo Johnsons, the David Njokus, the Dalton Schultzes, as they're trying to churn and burn. They're hoping for some consistency out of a guy like T.J. Hockenson. But here's what I got to ask you as the analytics guy. My math had his value down 156%. Did I shut it down wrong, or is that true? Is his value cratered that bad?
That sounds about right. I don't have it in front of me, but that definitely sounds correct.
So it's been bad. It's been dreadful. Should people panic on T.J. Hockenson and redraft rest of season? And are we ready to just cut him out?
Yes. I put him in at an 8.7. I think that he is droppable in the vast majority of redraft leagues. The best way that I could put his outlook, the best possible way I could put it, is that he's the third option in a middling passing offense. That is a glowing interpretation, in my opinion. I think it's more of a third or fourth option in a pretty rough passing game going forward. The advanced metrics on a per route basis, especially, have been downright bad this year, like 30th in all these per route stats among tight ends. And now his route volume is likely to drop as the Vikings tend to throw a lot less with J.J. McCarthy under center. So if he is on your bench for some reason, get rid of him immediately.
Panic meters at a 10. It's DEFCON 1. We're dropping. I am dropping him for the streamer of the week. I'm playing musical chairs through TJ Hockenson, meaning I will drop him just to see if I can find. If you can get Luke Musgrave, I am dropping him for Luke Musgrave.
Just moved Musgrave ahead of Hockenson today in our seasonal rankings.
Boom,
which is
baby.
That's pretty crazy.
It's shocking. And listen, Hockenson could have 2 touchdowns this week, and that shouldn't deter you because he does have a lot of red zone targets. But here's the thing. You're right. He is the third option on I think middling passing attack is generous.
Yes.
So if we're talking about him being the third option and passing attack doesn't have volume, what do we need to see? We need to see efficiency metrics through the wazoo. We need to see touchdown totals like we couldn't even fathom. We need to see him putting fantasy points on a per-game touch that would just be unparalleled, and that's just not going to happen. Could it happen in 1 week? Sure. But he's 0.29 fantasy points per round run makes him the 33rd in a tight end in that metric, meaning he needs intense volume to have weekly relevancy. That's not coming. The efficiency metrics, look across the board. He has, you know what his deep target share is?
I would guess like 0.
It's 0%, my friend. It is exactly 0%. His air yard share, 8.9%, 28th. There's just nothing high. There's nothing efficient about it. If you're only going to take 2 shots a game, you need them to be 3s if you want to maximize your output. Well, he's taking 2 shots, but they're free throws. Yeah. And he ain't hitting them all. So at this point, with this production, cut him out. 10 out of 10. Panic through the roof. It's time. I'm sorry. Had high hopes, even with J.J. McCarthy. But sometimes when, there's just better players around, rookies don't always, or, inexperienced quarterbacks don't always rely on tight ends like we would come to expect. And it ain't happened for T.J. Hockenson. The next guy, though. Let's talk about the next guy. This is a player whose his values dropped about 35% throughout the year. He's had some ups, but when you kind of look at the profile, he's had quite a bit of downs. So, Evan, give us your panic meter rating for Nico Collins.
Oh, this is a hard one for me. I've always been a huge Nico defender. I'm going with a 6.7 here, though. I am fairly panicked about Nico going forward, and that's pretty much because we drafted him to be our wide receiver 1 on our teams, and I think he's just a decent wide receiver 2 going forward, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He's not Brian Thomas Jr., but certainly a disappointing pick for us this year. He's outside the top 24 receivers in terms of both points per game and expected points per game, outside the top 30 in yards per out run and first downs per out run. His catchable target rate is abysmal. And I don't think it has a ton to do with Nico Collins as a player. I still think he's very good. The Texans offense just isn't good, and they're having serious problems sustaining drives, especially. They're 25th in EPA per play, 29th in success rate. That's really rough. You're gonna have a hard time keeping drives going when you have a success rate that poor.
I'm going to put it in a middle of the road 5 because I still, like you said, I still think he's a weekly, receiver 2, which puts him in most redraft lineups on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So at that value, I have to at least give him a 5. But I'm not going to go any higher because when you do factor in where you drafted him, expectations for your roster, I am with you. You cannot have a lot of confidence in him. When you look at the rest of the season schedule, it's right middle of the road for wide receivers. So we're not really looking at him to have some matchups where he can truly bully opposing defensive backs. And I don't know if it's injury. I don't know what it is. But we have seen a massive change in a few factors over those last few years for Nico Collins. So when he was just balling out, top 8 wide receiver on a per game basis, he was a monster in yards per route run, and he was a monster in design target share, meaning he was good enough to win, and he was expected to win because they were designing plays for him. This year, design target share is down to 21.4%. That's 24th. This is a metric, again, he's usually top 5, top 8 in. And then the yards per run, as you just alluded to, is a big-time drop, 1.93. That makes him wide receiver 30 in that range. And when you look at the efficiency metrics on playerprofiler.com, this is a massive, a stark, a concerning difference from 2023, 2024 to this year, 2025, in terms of all of them. Because this is a player who didn't have necessarily the biggest volume on a year-to-year basis. I mean, last year was wide receiver 8 on a per-game basis, 99 targets through 12 games. So pacing well, but we're not talking about the CeeDee Lamb level. We're not talking what JSN's projected to be, a Puka Nacua. He's a high-efficiency type of guy, and he's just not doing that this year. But again, I still think it's going to result in a lot of wide receiver 2 days. He's averaging 13 points a game, so I still think that's there. So my panic meter is at a 5, where I don't know. I'm not gonna panic sell, but I will shop. If there was someone out there shopping Nico Collins, what would be an expectations on a return?
I don't know that I'd be looking to move him because he's just the guy that you can still plug him in your lineup every week. If you were going to move him, I think maybe you add to Nico to get somebody like Kyron Williams or Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, a running back in that range. Or you could tier down to a running back in the DeAndre Swift, Jaylen Warren range. I think he falls somewhere in the middle there. Yeah, those are some ideas that come to mind for me.
I completely agree. I don't think tearing down from him in terms of going from his wide receiver caliber to someone lesser, like let's just call it a Romeo Dobbs, Josh Downs. I don't think that's worth it. I don't.
It would
think
have to be. It would have to be a
I don't think that makes much
situation
sense.
where you're just loaded at receiver and he's like your 4th or something like that.
Right. You just swung for the fences and just knocked out some of these rookies, the guys that have kind of jumped up some of the ranks. Maybe some guys that we'll talk about when we get to the risers and fallers. All right, let's get to the next player that's worth getting concerned about. And this one might just be chalked up to age. I don't know, but let's talk about how much are you panicking on Alvin Kamara, who's seen his value drop almost 60% for the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I was pretty high on Kamara coming into this season. I thought the volume was going to be just what we've always seen, but it hasn't been. I'm going with an 8.9. I'm very panicked, and I'm getting close to making Kamara a drop going forward. I think one more week of seeing this offense really struggle against the Panthers is going to be the final straw. Their best method of moving the football right now is just going to be spamming Chris Olave with 6-yard passes and running the Wildcat with Taysom Hill. I think this offense is just abysmal. The volume is it'll be fine for Kamara. He's going to get fine volume, but the efficiency has been just awful this year. And there's going to be like no opportunities for touchdowns as a result. He's currently 32nd in yards per route run, and that's traditionally one of the best receiving running backs in the game. 53rd in true yards per carry. Yikes. I guess if you really need 6 to 10 points from your running back for some reason, then I guess Kamara is an option for you. But there is not a single running back with less upside, in my opinion.
I'm going to put his panic meter right now at 6.7. So not as high, but I'm going to put an asterisk on it that the reason why I have it at the level I do is I am simply just trying to put myself in Kellen Moore's shoes and trying to make a decision that simply I can't make. None of us as fantasy managers have the ability to truly make this decision, but I'm going to put it at 6.7 because the remaining schedule for running backs, the Saints' remaining schedule versus running backs is awesome. 5th most advantageous in fantasy football. And as of right now, he is still getting the work. He is still on the field the most. Having said that, and the reason why I said you have to put yourself in Kellen Moore's shoes is where, at what point does he say, we need to see what Devin Neal can do? We need to see what this offense looks like without Alvin Kamara, because Alvin Kamara will not be on this team going forward. At what point do they hit the eject button as an organization on a player that has been a vet and a producer for this franchise for years? If the answer in your belief is 0, then you can't really panic because there's plenty of opportunities. He's on the field, the matchups, his usage, it's still there. It's still going to have volume, and volume is king for running backs. But if your answers to that Kellen Moore question is higher, a lot higher, then you got to panic a lot on Alvin Kamara because the efficiency metrics are not there. They're just simply not there. He does look like a player who has super diminished skill set right now. Very, very depleted in terms of what he used to be. So, if I'm Kellen Moore, I want to see what Devin Neal can do. You need to see what Kevin Neal could do and give him a stretch of, the rest of the season. And their bye week is in week 11. So in week 12, we could be sitting here having a conversation. Is Devin Neal a league winner? Is Devin Neal the new guy? How does this look? We could absolutely be having that conversation because I think they should start having that conversation because internally, Alvin Kamara ain't helping them win games. Alvin Kamara ain't helping them diagnose and project their offense going forward. So, but it's just, again, it's a question. It's a question we can't answer.
Yeah.
You could try.
I think in most redraft leagues, he's just clogging up rosters because if you have to start him, you're in a really bad place. And I don't really see I guess there is a slight upside case because of the schedule. The playoff schedule in particular is pretty cool. Let me pull it up right here. It's Carolina, Jets, and Tennessee. Those are 3 great matchups for running backs. My problem with that is, man, I don't really care about the running back schedule if the offense can't move the ball. This week, the Saints are projected for 17 points by Vegas, and that's against the Carolina Panthers. That's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, and at this point, I feel like redraft, there's nothing you could do other than just drop him. If he's clogging your roster, I don't think there's much you could do with him. But in a dynasty sense, real quick, are you taking a third for Alvin Kamara? Where's your line in the sand for draft picks?
I would take a third, assuming it's not like a super deep league where I'm starting him.
Fair enough. So we got a couple more guys. Another running back. This guy has a whole lot more juice left in the tank, or so we thought, but how much should we be panicking on Kenneth Walker rest of season?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of play in the middle here with a 5.9. I still have some hope for Walker going forward the rest of season, although my expectations are certainly tempered at this point. The glimpses of hope, though. Last week, the Seahawks finally did give him the clear lead running back role. He saw more work than Charbonnet across the board, including receiving, the 2-minute drill, the goal line, the short down and distance, the long down and distance, all of that. But this needs to be consistent. He needs to command a 60% backfield share or higher in order to be worthy of starting in our redraft leagues. He does still have his usual explosiveness this year too. So there is upside still in a good offense, even if their running offense isn't any good. They are at least scoring points, so they'll be in the red zone a lot. He's currently 6th in breakaway run rate, 4th in juke rate, and 8th in EPX. The toughest element, though, that's the schedule, which is the worst for any running back going forward. So he really needs. It's really all about that backfield share. If he can maintain last week's usage, then we're solid, and he can start in your lineups. If not, then he's a roster clogger.
I'm going to put his panic meter at a 7.3. And I want to put it higher, but the truth is, you make a good point. He does have, the explosiveness is still there. He should have all the juice left. I mean, he's still only 25 years old. This offense is one that I think is, I still don't know if we've seen it truly hum just quite yet. It's been good. The fantasy players in this offense have been awesome for our teams. But with the addition of Rashid Shaheed, I still think there's some room for explosiveness through this offense. But the schedule's tough. The usage is it's just not consistent enough for us to be excited about. Even last week, they kicked the living shit out of the Commanders.
Yeah.
So when those games happen, when the bullets are flying, they're trying to slow things down. They're trying to. Charbonnet still seems like he's going to be there.
I think so too. Yeah.
So I'm panicking a little bit. I'm panicking quite a bit at a 7.3, but I also put that a little bit, maybe a tad more high, because I also think you could sell. I do think he has enough value in your redraft leagues to sell, to put him inside of a package, including, maybe you can put him and Nico Collins, and that can get you in a tier above at running back. Can you buy in to a guy like that? Could you take a Kenneth Walker and move him for a Chase Brown, who's on his bye week? Can you exploit a bye week? Can you leverage a bye week with a Kenneth Walker? I still think those options are on the table, which is why I think I'm going to panic a little bit more, because I think there's an out. So if I'm going to panic, let's move on. Let's not ride the ship to the end. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, but we're not panicked like we are on other guys like Brian Thomas or Kamara, because at the end of the day, you should probably try to keep Kenneth Walker on your bench rather than cutting him, because if Charbonnet was to go down, boom, you have a top 8 running back.
You also have the out too. I think there is some value added to a team that looks to acquire Kenneth Walker, who has Zach Charbonnet, who just wants to put that issue out of their mind. They can maybe have them both. So there's ways to play it out. So we did all of these guys. All these players were looked at through the redraft lens, but you are the analytics guy here at Player Pro. You are the mastermind behind so many of the tools that we use here in Dynasty. And I just had to get your opinion on this player. So, what is your panic meter, 1 to 10, using decibels, on this quarterback in Dynasty? Jayden Daniels, who's after the injury, that will probably sideline him for most of the year, if not all the fantasy year. We're seeing his dynasty value, his lifetime value, drop down about 16% from the beginning of the year. Where are you? How much are you panicking on a guy like Jayden in Dynasty?
Yeah, and that dynasty value is going to drop even more this week after the injury. We should expect him to be out for the year. It's almost 100% that he's out for the year. Mm-hmm. I put his panic meter in Dynasty at a 3.8. I'm really pretty calm about this, although there are some things to note. Let's go over some positives first. The advanced metrics do look fairly good. 3rd in deep ball catchable pass rate, very accurate downfield. Despite these injuries that he was dealing with throughout the year, he's still ranked 1st in carry share, which is something we love to see for fantasy, and 9th in fantasy points per dropback, which is not what we saw last year, but it's still pretty damn good. Going into next year, though, I do have some serious questions about the Commanders. I think they need to address the O-line and the running game, which has been horrible this year, to take pressure off of Jayden. He could definitely use a go-to young receiver. His only guy going into next year is Terry McLaurin, and then this mismatch of guys like Jaylen Lane and Luke McCaffrey. Debo's out of the door. Ertz is out of the door. So we need to get him another receiver. And then the number one question here is, can he stay healthy? That was always the knock on him in the draft process. And this year only heightened those fears. He had a knee injury, a hamstring injury, and now the elbow injury. So yeah, I mean, I want to bet against the injuries and root for the super fun young quarterback going forward, but it's impossible to ignore those injuries too.
Would you sell him for Dart?
Oh, that's tough. That is really tough. I haven't thought about that yet this week, but I will lean Daniels for now. But I'm gonna have to reevaluate tomorrow when I do dynasty updates.
My panic meter in Dynasty for Jayden Daniels is 5.1. Now, I strategically picked 5.1 because if the question was, are you panicked or are you not panicked, my answer would be yes. Yes, I am. How much? 5.1. I'm not overly panicked, but the answer is yes, I am panicked because the injury's there. In one of my Dynasty leagues, I remember last year he had a rib injury and it was like the game against Carolina. He left early, but then he came back and was fine. I kind of panic sold him for Caleb and just like a swap of top guys. Now, I kind of, I don't love rostering Caleb, and I think in a lot of our more casual dynasty leagues, you'll come to find that Caleb's a tough guy to roster because people don't like him much. Right. People don't want to root for him. People don't want to roster him, so trading him is tough, even though he's quarterback 10 coming off a 40-point week. But I traded him because I saw that injury, and I immediately went, yep, he runs too aggressively. He's too thin. I don't think this is going to work. And then I regretted it. He went off to be fantastic rest of the year. This year, it's gone a little bit differently. For all the things you talked about, I am a bit panicked. And one thing that you didn't bring up that we have to put on the table now, these NFL franchises make decisions based on a number of factors that have nothing to do with our fantasy team. This year will be considered a failure for Dan Quinn, which means he'll have a successful year and a failing year. If next year is a failure, we will be talking about regime change in Washington a calendar year from now, maybe it's 18 months from now. Whether it happens or not, it'll be on the conversation, and that is not good for the long-term outlook of any quarterback. It's not the end. I mean, we've seen Justin Herbert go through, all these different coordinators, and now he's got his true quarterback or true head coach, and it's working. So it could work. I'm not saying it's done. Again, I'm not overly panicked. I'm not giving him away. Am I trading for Jackson Dart? That secondary piece doesn't have to be as big as it used to be. Let's put it that way. So I am not saying a 1-for-1 swap, but if I can get a second with Jackson Dart, if I can get a receiver that's semi-playable, if I can get a win-now running back and a contender, yeah, I think the Dart conversation is going to get more and more exciting throughout the year. So are we overly panicked on Jayden? No, but I do think that the concerns that are being raised are warranted. So it's definitely worth being talked about. And we do have another segment that we are going to talk about. So stick around for more game plan action because we got our biggest risers and fallers in our rest of season ranks. Stay tuned.
Pour one out for an incredible best ball season. It was a breakout 2025 for Fast Draft, but now the NFL action has started. That means it's DFS season. That's right. You might think, oh, wow, DFS, I can't win DFS. Oh, but you can on Fast Draft. You just pick any 6 guys, and you put them in a handful of booster spots. There's no salary rubric you have to follow. You're not going up against thousands of killer bots in these tournaments. Oh, no. These are regular people grabbing their 6 favorite plays of the week, and that's all you have to do. And we post the ownership so that you can choose how much chalk you want. There is no drafting. It's called the Quick 6 Super Slam. The Quick 6 Super Slam is the signature DFS contest at Fast Draft. It is changing DFS. We are making DFS great again. So go to fastdraft.app and use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match. And let's go start drafting faster.
It's the game plan. Matty Kiwum, Evan Ringler. We're talking some risers and fallers in our rest of season ranks. So let's start with the positive. Now, let me ask you, do you want to go riser faller or do you want to go riser faller faller?
Let's go riser faller.
All right. So let's start with your number 1 riser.
my number one riser is Bears running backs, DeAndre Swift / Kyle Monangai. Chicago ranks third in running back usage over the last month. Before that, they ranked 28th in that metric. They're also sixth in run blocking rating throughout the year. Clearly, the Bears want to run the ball a lot, and now they've kind of figured out their run blocking. Both running backs have also been very efficient. Swift, ninth in yards per out run, seventh in yards created per touch, and fourth in EPX, while Kyle Monangai is seventh in true yards per carry and seventh in juke rate. These are two good running backs in a good environment, and I'm projecting Swift as like a mid to high end running back 2 going forward, and Kyle Monangai is at worst an elite handcuff, and I think you can potentially even flex him if you have to.
If Kyle Monangai if he gets dropped through this waiver cycle in redraft because it looks like DeAndre Swift is coming back, are you trying to add him and stash him? Is he
Most
worth
definitely.
keeping around? Okay.
Yeah, I have him ahead of some starters. Like I have him at running back 27 in my seasonal rankings right now. Ahead of guys like Waddle, ahead of Bill Krosky-Merritt, ahead of both Titans running backs, both Vikings running backs, etc.
And I think it seems on surface to be a lazy comparison, lazy analysis, but I don't think it's lazy. I think sometimes the best answer, the quickest way from A to B is a straight line, right? We are seeing this iteration of the Ben Johnson double-headed running back. This is the Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery time split usage, how it works. We're seeing it now, and I think we're going to see it regardless of who's in what role, because obviously a Monangai isn't a Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, there really isn't another Jahmyr Gibbs in the NFL anyway.
Right.
Actually, you could say that Swift was a decent comparison.
I'd say Monangai is more of the Montgomery to Swift.
He fits more of the Montgomery,
Yeah.
but the thing is that even when Monangai was thrust in the Gibbs role, and I use that in terms of the number one of the strong side of the platoon, let's call it, we still saw Britain Brown score 9.7 fantasy points, 5 attempts, 37 yards on a rushing TD. We've seen Monangai score a touchdown when DeAndre Swift was healthy and in the game. This offense runs best when Ben Johnson has two backs doing the damn thing. So if you are worried about DeAndre Swift coming back, maybe you picked up Monangai for the spot start. I am not dropping, and if he is dropped, I am picking up because we're looking at the new iteration of the split of the Ben. We won't put the names on it. We'll just call it the Ben Johnson running back split. So I'm with you. I think he needs to be picked up, needs to be rostered, all that good stuff. And hell, if DeAndre Swift, if he's out this week, he's a buy candidate for me in redraft. If he's back, Monangai is the buy candidate for me. Whoever sees a value dip, give me the buy. So I'm glad you brought up the running back situation in Chicago because it can have many faces. It doesn't have to just be one singular player that we, use this information to help us win in fantasy football. My biggest riser, rest of season, Jaylen Waddle. Don't look now, folks, but Jaylen Waddle is wide receiver 12 overall in fantasy football. We have seen this guy warrant more than 5 targets in every single game except one, and it was that rainy, horrible game in Cleveland in Week 7 where he had 1 catch for 15 yards. Other than that, we're talking about top 20, top 25, top 5 performances. We're seeing it in the efficiency era. We're seeing it in the volume aspect. Expected points added, number 6. Yards per out run, number 11 in all of NFL. And number 11 in fantasy points per route run. So he's still got the juice, folks. And now he's getting the volume. Tyreek Hill is not coming through that door. The trade deadline has come and gone. And it seems as if Mike McDaniel will be around for the remainder of the season, which might not be good for the Finns fans out there, but I think it's good for our fantasy players. We kind of understand what we're getting. Jaylen Waddle, yes. HN, yes. After that, that's fine. We'll take 2 fantasy relevant players on a team that's been tough. in his remaining schedule, the 9th most advantageous. So he has risen up my rankings, steadfast all season. It started, of course, with the injury to Tyreek Hill, and then just seeing the volume happen week after week. And now we're, facing week 10. So we have a pretty decent sample size in terms of the analytics, the efficiency metrics kind of materializing, kind of becoming more substantial that we can use in predictive ways. He just continued to rise up my ranks, and for the rest of the season, I think he, for me now, is safely inside my top 15 wide receivers rest of the season. So Jaylen Waddle's a massive riser for me.
Yeah, I love it, man. He's got great usage and great efficiency. And the schedule, after their Week 12 bye, they face the Saints, Jets, Steelers, and Bengals. It really doesn't get any better than that over a 4-game stretch, and that takes you into the championship game. So pretty good timing on that one as well. No notes, really.
All right, let's get into the downside of things. Who's your biggest faller rest of the season?
My biggest faller is Jordan Mason. So I'm going to give you some basic splits here with and without Aaron Jones. With Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason is averaging 5.2 points per game on 7.1 expected points per game. Without Aaron Jones, he was averaging 14.5 points per game on 16 expected points per game. That is a fall of 9 points per game and 9 expected points per game when you put Aaron Jones onto the field. Minnesota is also 31st in running back usage over the last month, and the efficiency metrics are also rough. 0.38 yards per route run. That's about as bad as you can get. 54th in points per opportunity and 49th in yards created per touch. I would say that Jordan Mason is droppable in almost every redraft league at this point. I don't think he's a particularly valuable. I guess he has some decent handcuff value, but there are probably better options out there.
Ask yourself this question if you're not sure how to answer the Jordan Mason conundrum. Would you roster Blake Corum in your redraft league? If the answer is no, then you should not be rostering Jordan Mason because both running backs have tremendous upside but potentially zero standalone value without some sort of anomaly in the touchdown department. So, it's this cold hard truth of fantasy gaming, how much these players' stocks rise and fall throughout a given year. And we talked about my biggest faller right now in the previous segment, Kenneth Walker. So I got him outside of the top 30 running backs rest of season. He's just splitting too much time. We don't know what to expect week to week. And the schedule downright sucks, as you mentioned earlier. It is the stone worst advantageous matchup for running backs in fantasy football. So for me, he's a guy I've always had a tremendous amount of expectations. I've always projected him quite highly because I just thought we would see that production that we saw early on in his career on a more consistent basis, and we've seen it in spurts. We haven't seen it come together over the course of a season based on injuries and now splitting time with Zach Charbonnet. So we talked about what to do with Kenneth Walker earlier in the show, so I'm not going to rehash that, but yeah, he has been a big follow for me. So double dip for Kenneth Walker, who did make the thumbnail.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate that we haven't really seen that giant breakout season that we've wanted to. Last year was really good, but he's the kind of player that could put together a 20-point per game season potentially, and we've seen half of that this year at 10 points per game. Because of that, just 50-50 split with Charbonnet. It really sucks.
I don't want to end this segment on a down note, so we're going to run a back-to-back. We're going to get our second faller out of the way, and then we'll end it with our last riser. So we can end on an optimistic note. So, Evan, who is your second and final faller in your rest of season ranks?
Courtland Sutton. The theory with drafting Courtland Sutton this year was we were expecting a pretty high target share and a very high red zone target share, because we thought that he was by far the best receiver in Denver. However, he ranks 37th in target share and 47th in red zone target share, which blew my mind when I looked that up today. Why is this? Well, Troy Franklin is right there with Sutton in terms of volume now, and he's higher in both of those categories than Courtland Sutton, including way higher in terms of red zone target share, which I never would have expected. With his disappointing usage, Sutton becomes just a mid wide receiver 3 instead of the wide receiver 2 we saw early on. And Franklin is in the same boat as well.
I would have loved to see this team get another receiver at the deadline. We heard rumors of Jaylen Waddle. It feels like we're getting to the end of the Sutton-Knicks connection. So I'm going to put you on the spot real quick because I just had this thought in my head just kind of popped up. Who is the heir apparent? Is it Franklin? Is it Pat Bryant? Is it someone that's not on the roster? Who's the connection we're going to want in Denver for the next 5 years?
Yeah, I guess the favorite right now would be Troy Franklin because the usage as a year 2 player has honestly been really good, like way better than expected, and it's flying under the radar. Definitely watch out for Pat Bryant, though. He could make a run at it. Certainly neither player is in the Courtland Sutton mold of like a jump ball touchdown scorer, but it doesn't really matter when you have Sean Payton scheming up plays.
Sean Payton needs a slant boy. Who's going to elevate into the slant boy role?
Pat
Maybe
Bryant seems likely to be that type of player. That's why they drafted him, at least. We'll see.
Yeah, they did draft him higher than expected. So it's a good call. Sutton, even though he's a faller in your ranks rest of season, how should redraft managers kind of operate with Sutton? Is he just kind of a keep putting your flex, hope to find other arrangements? Is he a sell? What's your kind of thoughts on the roster side of things?
Yeah, it's going to be tough to sell him, I think. He hasn't been super explosive in terms of fantasy points recently. He's just been kind of fine. So you might not be able to move on from him, but willing to throw him in a deal for sure. I think at this point he is a flex play based on the matchup each week. You're certainly not throwing him in your lineup every week, but you can throw him in there if it's a good matchup.
We've been here before. If you've been playing this fantasy game for a while, like we've had, we've had this situation with this exact player in the past where we didn't know exactly how to go about him. The emergence has kind of been more of a recent development. So we've been at we've been at this point of the season. We've charted these waters before, if you will. My second faller, my last faller. Let's get this out of the way. Xavier Worthy. He falls barely inside my top 50 rest of the season at receiver. He's wide receiver 51 on a per game basis, wide receiver 55 overall. He's really just become the deep threat guy. How you felt about Rashid Shaheed in lineup leagues is probably how you should feel about Xavier Worthy, which hurts my soul to say. But we're seeing the design target share fall. He's had an 11.1 red zone target share, which is putrid. He's just not being used in a role that we want to start on a weekly basis. I mean, let's just take these last 2 weeks, for instance. So these, the first week back with Rashee Rice, it was kind of everyone was off the field in the third quarter. So we'll kind of throw that out. We'll throw that game up. But these last 2 games since Rashee Rice has been back, so week 8, week 9, Worthy's played a ton. 85% in week 8, 83% in week 9. He's seen targets. 14 targets over these last 2 weeks. 8 catches. 7 targets, 3 catches last week. He's had only 76 yards in those 2 games on all those targets. And 126 air yards in just week 9. Meaning, Evan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you are the analytics guy, his profile is trending in a way that they are just going to take 2 or 3 deep shots to him per game, design a play or 2 for him per game. And if you don't cash in on most of those opportunities, we're looking at 6 to 8 fantasy points. And if he does cash in, we're looking at 15. The ceiling it's just not there other than him having 4 catches, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, just absolutely torching some poor soul in the defensive backfield. So for me, he's a faller in my rest of season rankings, and he is a guy that if you can move on from, I will do it. And if you're desperate, and we're looking at week 10, this is desperation mode. If you need a win, He's on bye. I am willing to sell him for names that would seem unfathomable just 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I would sell him for any spot starter that you would put in your lineup. I don't know necessarily if this is a reflection on his talent or just the usage, but yeah, man, you likened him to Rashid Shaheed. I would say that's too generous. I would liken him to Marvin Mims, a guy that
Ooh.
it's just check down or deep shot. That's not a sustainable way for fantasy football. And when you look at the efficiency metrics, it really stands out. 65th in yards per route run, 72nd in first downs per route run. Those are the most predictive efficiency metrics that we have for receivers, and he is abysmal in them. Um, if you need to drop him in redraft, you need to drop him. If you need to throw him in a trade to get a spot starter for 1 week, do it.
Things are looking grim for those players, but again, we're gonna end on the positive side of things. We're gonna talk about our next riser. So, after some down talk, after some bummer stuff, Evans, after being down in the dumps, let's get everyone's spirits back up, up, up. Let's talk about another riser.
Drizzy Drake London. Over
Drizzy.
the last 4 games, he's averaging 12 and a half targets, 26 points per game, and 22 expected points per game. Sheesh. Over the full season, he ranks first in red zone target share, second in first read target share, third in target rate, and fifth in both points per game and expected points per game. He's absolutely a top 5 talent in the NFL and an easy wide receiver 1 in fantasy. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is the environment. Penix has fluctuated between decent and horrible this year, just like the Falcons' offense. But overall, London is so good that it doesn't even matter. We saw him last week just mossing dudes repeatedly. I counted like 4 mosses in one game. That's got to be a record. We should start tracking that on the site. Just an insane game, an insane stretch of games for Drake London.
Dude, that first of all, yes, mossing needs to be an actual quantifiable statistic that we can use. And I was at that game. I was live at the Patriots-Falcons game. He abused the cornerback so much, I think Christian Gonzalez faked an injury at the end. That he just couldn't take it. He was playing bully ball the worst kind of way. And this is what we've always envisioned for Drake London. So to see him rise, it's just not a shock. It's actually quite awesome to see. My biggest, not my biggest, but another riser for my rest of season ranks is someone that has been left for dead the last 2 years. Last year, he came back in an electrifying way, and I'm expecting him to do it again this year. I'm talking about Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has the best rest of season schedule for tight ends in fantasy football. The best. Number 1. They've had their bye, so he's going to be on the field for the rest of the season. Now, a lot of the efficiency metrics are a bit down. But where he is shining is fantasy points per route run, fantasy points per target, both those top 8. And in a tight end, we don't need the volume. The studs get the volume, but we just need guys who can turn what they get into big-time fantasy points. And in this offense, with Lamar Jackson back, Mark Andrews can do it in spades. We saw it just last week on Thursday Night Football. 3 targets, 2 catches. 2 catches, you might be saying, ugh, what can he do with 2 catches? Well, he turned them into 2 catches for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tight end 5 in the week. Can we expect that every single week? Absolutely not. But could we expect a 6 target, 5 catches for 50 yards? Get 10 points? Be tight end 8? Tight end 10? Yeah. I think this is what we're going to see based on the easy schedule rest of season. So, left for dead last year. He came back to win a lot of people there's some money in fantasy. I think he is in line to do it again. I got Mark Andrews as a top 10 tight end rest of season.
Yeah, I don't know if Mark Andrews is actually all that good anymore, but it doesn't matter. I think this Baltimore offense is going to be super explosive rest of season. They really have to be in order to make the playoffs. And we know that Mark Andrews is the preferred red zone option for Lamar Jackson. So if he can just replicate what he did last year and score a bunch of touchdowns, which is very possible given how good the offense is, then I see no reason he shouldn't be a top 10 tight end. In week 12, Baltimore faces the Jets, and then after that, it's Cincy, Pittsburgh, Cincy again. It doesn't get any better than that.
Mark Andrews could be a big-time contributor for you down the stretch. 2 risers, 2 fallers from each of us. Jaylen Waddle, Mark Andrews from me. My 2 followers, Xavier Worthy and Kenneth Walker. Evan, remind the people your risers and fallers before you move on.
The Bears backfield and Drake London were my big risers, and then my fallers were Jordan Mason and Courtland Sutton.
Boom. And that's it. That's going to do it for the true episode. But of course, we don't sign off until we answer all the questions from the chat. So if you stuck around, shouts to you. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to Player Profiler on YouTube, leave a comment, do all that good stuff. So let's get into the chat. Let's get into some questions, and let's wrap up week 10 here for the game plan. Dynasty-wise, would you rather have Malik Washington or A.D. Mitchell?
You know, I have a few dynasty leagues where I'm actually starting Malik Washington every week. Those include return yards. So in those type of leagues, for me, it's easily Malik Washington. But in the majority of normal dynasty leagues where neither of these guys are in your starting lineup, I think Adonai Mitchell clearly has more upside, so I'll take him.
So the Dolphins fan just offered him Mitchell for Washington. Not a huge trade, but worth asking. Yeah, easy. I'm taking AD. I'm taking AD. I've liked the player. They were in the same draft class, and I had AD Mitchell ranked significantly higher than Malik. I think Malik Washington's really just kind of a product of circumstance right now without Tyreek Hill, and he's not really doing a ton with it. Where AD Mitchell is now going to be in a role where could he carve out, the second highest target share in New York rest of season going forward? It's tough to think about. So with such a small trade, I would rather just shoot the upside and shoot for the stars and hope AD Mitchell can turn things around. Hey, guys, this is my team in Week 10. What do you think? Drake May, James Cook, Quinshawn Judkins, JSA, Egbuka, McBride, Rome. He's got a decent bench. So what do you think? Just give him a rating. A, B, C, D, or F?
I will go B+. Or no. I'll give him an A-. The only issue is the running back 2 spot. Other than that, it's an amazing roster.
I think you kind of nailed it there. I think there's enough stars in a 10-man league where you can win. You need stars in those leagues, and you got the stars. Yeah,
I do have one suggestion. I don't know if you drop Caleb Williams to pick up a running back, but I don't want Caleb on my bench. You already have Drake May. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in a 10-man league, you don't need to have 2 quarterbacks. You could find Drake May's bye week replacement that week. So I agree with that. Trade Bucky and Olave to get Lamb.
Running backs are Javonte, Tracy, TreVeyon, and Bucky. Receivers are Puka, Olave, BTJ, and Godwin. Interesting. I think, I would do that. I do really like Bucky and Olave the rest of the season, but I'm a huge CeeDee Lamb guy. He's been somewhat disappointing since he came back, but I still have him projected as a top 5 receiver rest of season.
This might seem kooky. Let's see if you can get it done with Bucky and BTJ. Keep Olave.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Need help at third flex and PPR. Musgrave, Golden, Isaiah Davis, Coker. Tough pickings here.
That is rough. This is going to take me a sec. Can you go first on this one? 5, 6.
For me right now, this might sound crazy, but I'm going to go Luke Musgrave. Golden's been a massive disappointment. I don't know if it gets much better for him in year 1 based on how this offense operates. Isaiah Davis, we saw him get 20 points in an absolute bonanza type atmosphere, but we're talking about the Browns this week. And then Coker, what can he do with the 4 targets that he gets? Can he score? I don't like to rely on that. I think Musgrave, he's not as good as Tucker Kraft, but we thought he was going to be Tucker Kraft in their rookie campaign. We kind of all thought it was going to be Musgrave. He's talented enough. He's young enough. He can make the plays. And I think I don't know if it's gonna. It's definitely not a 1-for-1, but could it be 85% of Tucker Kraft? And that's still pretty damn good. So I'm gonna go with Kraft here.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Right now, I have it projected as Jalen Coker, but I think Luke Musgrave is definitely the ceiling play. I'm going to keep evaluating as the week goes on, but I'm cool with going Musgrave here too.
Would you guys trade Marv and a 4th for Pickens?
Marv and a 4th for Pickens in Dynasty. In a win now situation. Considering that Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback in Arizona probably for the rest of the season, I'm holding Marv. I'm not a huge Marv guy at all, but I expect him to I don't know. I would rather have Pickens rest of the season, but in Dynasty, this is still Marv for me.
I'm gonna give you some analysis here that maybe isn't as beneficial because it's really more just a personal thing. But I am utterly pissed off that someone's asking for a 4th round pick on top of my Marv for Pickens. That's just somebody trying to squeeze the toothpaste, get all of the morsels out of it. And in those situations, I'm going to tell them to piss off. My ego does not allow me to be bullied around in trade negotiations. You can suck it. I am not making this trade if you want a 4th. What is a 4th? That is such a no thank you. Move next. Give me Marv all day if they're gonna be a freaking dink and suck a 4th round. Get out of here. Kick rocks. Pick 2 in a flex play. Wan'Dale Robinson, BTJ, Manungai, Woody Marks, Bill, TreVeyon Henderson. Pick 2.
First of all, I highly doubt Brian Thomas plays this week, so you can rule him out of there. If DeAndre Swift is out, then Kyle Monangai absolutely has to be in your lineup. If not, I would go with TreVeyon. TreVeyon is definitely in there. And so it's either TreVeyon and Monangai or TreVeyon and Wan'Dale for me.
Nailed it. That's exactly what I'm doing too, which is crazy. But Bill, we're going to have a conversation. Bill, does Bill stink?
I actually had this in my notes just in case we needed an extra segment today. 40th in points per game, 41st in expected points per game. Hasn't scored 6 fantasy points in over a month.
Good matchups on the schedule, too.
And I just don't care. I think the running game in Washington just sucks. They're 30th in running back usage. So yeah, I'm just out rest of the season.
Dennis, the hit rate on a 4th rounder of fantasy drafts is 0.4%. Yeah, I know. And I know that might say, well, then why not throw it in? Because screw you. You're not going to freaking take something. No, get out of here with that stuff. Get out of that shit.
No, give me a 4th.
Yeah, give me a freaking 4th. I will let you go get in the way. Trade DK for Swift. Redraft a 14-man team.
I prefer Swift. Obviously, cross-positional trades like this, it depends on your team for sure, but I do prefer Swift. I think he has a lot more upside.
I like the direction. Don't love the exact player that you're trading for because the injury factor, the rookie just having a massive game, it just feels like the wrong name. But I like the philosophy. So if this is just the best or you just happen to have a gut feeling, Zach, about Swift, then yeah, I think I agree with the philosophy enough. Started 0-4, now 5-4. 5-game win streak. Let's
Come
go,
on, baby.
I have an elite wide receiver room and a bunch of Jags at running backs. Who would you start from Kenneth Walker, Tyrone Tracy, Woody Marks, Isaiah Davis, and Ray Davis, RJ Harvey, and Jordan Mason? So which 2 of these band of yellow-belly losers are you starting, LaFleur?
Oh, man, one of the best movies of all time.
Yes, sir.
If there's a chance James Cook misses this week, if he does, Ray Davis auto start. Might have to start 3 from that bunch. Okay. So yeah, if James Cook is out, then Ray Davis is an auto start. Besides that, this gets really tough. I can't start Jordan Mason. I guess maybe Kenneth Walker. Yeah, I would go Kenneth Walker and Woody Marks.
I would probably go Harvey in this situation, but given the fact that he plays Thursday, I want to wait and see because the James Cook news is so massive for Ray Davis. So I am going to wait and not play Harvey. And right now I would be looking at Kenneth Walker and Tracy. The Bears have not been a good defense against the run. Tracy did show that he's going to get the lion's share of that platoon. So I would go Tracy and Walker right now and wait to see what that the James Cook, Ray Davis avenue kind of looks like here. And then, of course, too, does Aaron Jones miss? There's just a lot to see what happens. So you got to wait.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, RJ Harvey is just a touchdown bet. So, it's risky.
Pick 2.5-point PPR, Woody Marks, Fannin, and Keon Coleman. So which one of these three are you benching?
I'm benching Keon. I don't trust him at all at this point.
I agree. I think I agree. So confused about BTJ as we all are, but we hope we brought some clarity to the profile and what to expect rest of season. Is it worth the trade offering Brian Thomas Jr. and Charbonnet for Woody Marks and Wan'Dale Robinson?
I would take Woody Marks over Zach Charbonnet rest of season. I would take Wan'Dale Robinson over Brian Thomas Jr. rest of season.
So if this is a redraft trade, do it. Sounds crazy. Sounds absolutely. If I would have, Evan,
no,
if I went back,
he has Woody and Wan'Dale, so do not do this.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I would also rather have Woody Marks and Wan'Dale. But imagine if I was jumped in a time machine and went back and we were having a conversation in August, and I said to you, by the time we get to the beginning of November, you will rather have Wan'Dale Robinson and Woody Marks over Zach Charbonnet and Brian Thomas Jr. Woo, yes or yes, you would think I was on crystal meth.
Yes.
We shouldn't panic on Worthy in Dynasty, though, right? Should we panic on him in Dynasty?
I am starting to panic, man. I don't really see Rashee Rice going anywhere. I think they're going to keep him as their go-to guy. And as long as Rice is there, I don't really see where the upside is for Worthy. I'm gonna be seriously dropping Worthy in the Dynasty ranks this week. I am panicking.
I'm not as panicked in long term because I think the loss of Travis Kelce is going to kind of normalize this offense, and I think we could see more of not in the same way, but in a similar style as that LSU Malik Neighbors Brian Thomas, where I know that's not the same size and shape, but the way it can work with this passing volume, I think can work in Dynasty. So I still like Worthy in Dynasty because we are going to see, the Juju potentially move on. We're going to see Travis Kelce move on. We're going to see Hollywood Brown potentially move on. There's just a consolidated target share, ahead. So I still love the profile, still love the talent enough to not worry about him in Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm just, me, man. I'm the analytics guy. And when I see 60th in target share, 65th in yards per route, and 72nd in first downs per route, I'm out.
I was offered Judkins for McBride. Would you rather have Judkins or McBride rest of the season?
I'd rather have McBride. There could certainly be a case if you have a really good backup tight end for you to trade McBride, but I'm not a Judkins guy rest of season because that offense is atrocious.
Yeah, you would have had to double tap, taking McBride early and Tyler Warren late, or maybe if this Colston Loveland breakout continues, you'd have to have that level because in redraft
or Gadsden.
Maybe Gadsden. You could make the argument for a Gadsden. You picked him up on waivers. We'll throw him in the mix as well. But you need a difference maker at tight end to win in redraft. It comes in different ways, but McBride's doing what we wanted him to do. We drafted him to do. I'm not shaking it up too much, and Judkins would have to be such an improvement in my running back 2 spot that I honestly just don't even see that happening. I don't see the increase in running back 2 factoring the loss of fantasy points on a weekly basis for McBride, even if you had your number 2 being like a Harold Fannin or a Kyle Pitts. Like, that's too big of a drop-off. You would need elite level, week-to-week scoring at that position for me to want to move on from a McBride, so probably not going to do that. Got a contender that has Kraft and Tyreek. which wide receiver could you target if you're selling Kraft? So assume there's some tight end premium, because if not, you're probably not going to be able to sell him for much. So let's just say there's some juice behind tight ends in this league. What wide receiver are you looking to trade him for?
Interesting. This is a tough one. I don't know. Maybe this is a tough question. Let me hit the dynasty ranks really quick.
I'll answer it first as you kind of dive into it. I'm going to go with a little bit of a gut feeling. Like, I would look to sell, if you're a winner, you're a contender, DK Metcalf. Could you jump into a T. Higgins with an added piece? Could you buy into a Devontae Adams rest of season? Michael Pittman? That would be the range I'd be shopping with Tucker Kraft.
Okay. Yeah. So before the injury, we had him in tight end premium leagues around guys like Pickens and Marv. After the injury, he's obviously going to be falling significantly down from that range to guys like possibly Jordan Addison, DK Metcalf, as you mentioned, Devontae Adams, perchance. That's a good one. That's an interesting one. Michael Pittman. Obviously, you're getting pluses on top of these older guys, but those are some options.
Yeah, I think he has enough value, and I think he showed enough that he can get you a difference maker in your flex spot for Dynasty if you're willing to take on the age and take on the risk.
Could you get like Adams in a second? Is that realistic?
I don't know if you could get a second with it, but could you get like a second equivalent in terms of a player?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Could you get, let's go shopping with the second round running back range. Like, could you get Devontae Adams and Jaylen Warren? Could you get
that would be incredible.
Devontae Adams and Rico Dowdle?
Dude, oh my God, that would be insane.
I think you could.
Yeah,
I think
it's totally
there's enough
possible.
Dynasty gamers that are going to be looking for the future.
And this reminds me that Jaylen Warren is the most underpriced asset in all formats right now. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and he might actually have long-term value.
Yeah.
And by long-term, I mean 1 more year, and that's all we can ever project when we're doing these pesky running backs. Okay, let's keep it going. J.K. Dobbins, Jaylen Warren.
Give me the man.
And if you don't know, now you know. If we're talking about the man, it's not Becky Lynch, it's Jaylen Warren. Would you trade Rico, Fannin, and Worthy for
Darion,
Saquon, and Warren?
Okay, let's just say it's Saquon and Warren. I guess.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Rico, Fannin, and Worthy for Saquon and Warren.
And I'm assuming Tyler, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because you have Fannin on the other side. I would do this. Yeah, I would do this. I have Saquon over Rico rest of season. It's not a huge difference in that, but Tyler Warren clearly over Fannin rest of season. And in my opinion, Worthy he just doesn't really factor into this trade.
Buy Rodgers and for a second on a Kyler team. This is a great question because I think if you play Dynasty, your inbox if you're a contender in Dynasty, your inbox has been riddled with thirds for Jacoby Brissett, thirds for Marcus Mariota, thirds for Joe Flacco, and seconds for Aaron Rodgers. So are you moving a contender second for a quarterback? I'm assuming in Superflex.
Definitely Superflex. I will say that you got to do what you got to do.
It's also best ball, if this helps.
Oh,
Some more context.
So his only other starting quarterbacks are Bo Nix and Jared Goff. You definitely need a third, that's for sure. So if this is the price, then that's the price, and you got to get it done. I would definitely try to shop around and look for other options, but you got to do it if you have to.
If the price is a second, this is what you do. You try to get his Zach Ertz. You try to get there are
especially in best ball, yeah.
There are these teams that have these, kind of just crusty type players, guys that are just don't really have value, that are perceived as kind of nothings. Just get 1 or 2 even thrown in. I don't care. Hollywood Brown, yeah. Adam, put him on the board. Christian Kirk, yeah. Kendrick Bourne, thank you. Calvin Ridley, sure. Just get one of these assets that are complete nothing now. Get that in there just to help with that second, because you want the second You want it to taste good. You don't want to just take it for the third guy. You want to add a little bit extra to the mix. Alec Pierce or Ricky Pearsall rest the season in redraft? A question I cannot believe we're asking, but it's a good one.
Dude, I don't know because I keep thinking, well, this has to be the week that Ricky Pearsall is back. No, this has to be the week. No, this has to be the week. It seems like it's just never going to be the week because he's looking like he's going to be out again this week. So I guess I'll take Alec Pierce, even though, see, every week I start with Ricky Pearsall as a wide receiver 3 rest of season, and then gradually move him down and down until he's like a wide receiver 4. And I guess that's just going to happen again this week.
It's crazy to say, but I'm assuming in the context of the question, you have to make a drop, and you're deciding between Pierce or Pearsall. I'd go with Pierce. Pierce has been producing. He's been usable, to believe it or not. And at this point, like, when does Pearsall come in, and does it matter? I mean, it's the Christian McCaffrey show. We haven't seen George Kittle get going. We haven't seen Jennings do much. We haven't seen Kendrick Bourne do jack squat since he's been the only show in town. Like, remember, when Bourne was doing it, there was no Jennings, there was no Kittle, there was nothing other than Bourne. So when Pearsall comes back, what's it look like? What does the volume truly look like? I don't know. We know what we're getting with Pierce.
I do think there could be some real upside there potentially, but it's going to take him a few weeks to get up to speed. And at that point, we don't have time for that right now. And this goes into something I've been really frustrated with this season, which is the stupid NFL injury reporting rules. Like, Ricky Pearsall has been questionable every single week for the last 2 months.
Off on your IR. Off on.
The last 2 weeks, it's just been questionable, and we've gotten no news about it the entire time. It's complete bullshit, especially for a league with billions in gambling every single week. It's just getting on my nerves, man.
It feels like the IR slots have been so improperly used in the NFL, if that makes sense. Like, Bucky Irvin, why didn't he not go on the IR? Ricky Pearsall, why did they not go on the IR?
Like, I understand it in certain situations because you think, well, maybe we can get him back in 3 weeks instead of the 4 for IR. But at the end of the day, there just needs to be rules where the NFL has to tell the public about exactly what the injury is rather than just DNP, knee. That's all they have to say instead of actually telling them that it's a grade 1 PCL sprain or whatever.
I like it. I like the call. This team 6-3, 12-man, full point PPR. Drake May, blah, 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 blah. Any trade ideas for the playoffs? Just give them a quick trade idea here. Okay.
Running backs or quarterback, you're obviously set with Drake May. Running backs, Achane, Bucky, Henry, love that. Receivers, JSN, Amon-Ra, Garrett, love that. Tight end, Kittle, love that. Man, this is just an awesome team. I guess we're looking for flex pieces here. I don't know. I guess I would look to maybe move Woody Marks and Shaheed for another flex piece, but really we're just making moves around the fringes here because this team is beautiful. Maybe move on from Jordan Love as well. We don't need a second quarterback when we have Drake May. What do you think?
I'm with all that. I think also, we kind of talked about it briefly last week, is using the tight ends. See if you can get these flex plays for Fannin and Kittle. See if you can tier down, and just bolster up. Or take Kittle and Fannin and Woody Marks and see if you can jump into Trey McBride. See if you can up tier at tight end. So that's kind of how I would play. I'd either down tier, up tier at tight end because I think your fundamentals are good on this team and it's proving to be good in your win-loss record. So I think we kind of keep the ship in the right direction. No drastic changes. I think the Achane, JSN, Amon-Ra is going to be deadly down the stretch. Garrett Wilson comes back. It just gives you that three-headed dragon. So I'm trying to use these tight ends to kind of bolster up. I was offered A.J. Brown and J.K. Dobbins for Derrick Henry. Should he take it?
I think that's a pretty fair offer. It really depends on your roster. Is J.K. Dobbins going to slide right into your lineup as like your running back 2 instead of Derrick Henry? And then A.J. Brown replaces Scrub in your wide receiver 3 spot? Then definitely do it. But if these are just like minor improvements, then maybe it doesn't really make sense. But I think the value is fair.
Yeah, value. I would rather have the players. I don't think I think the tier down in terms of talent from Derrick Henry to J.K. Dobbins is not that drastic this season. So I think I would take the chance on A.J. Brown bouncing back rest of season. Coming out of the bye, can he be healthy? Can he help out? I think I'd rather bet on that. Just lost Daniels in redraft. Is JJ a good option? This is a 14-man league, so the waiver wire is pretty dry. So if it's not JJ, who's the replacement for Jayden Daniels in a 14-team redraft league?
In a 14-team redraft league, I think McCarthy is a pretty good option for the waiver wire. I would also say I have Mariota slightly ahead rest of season, and Jacoby Brissett just behind him. So those are some guys that might be available, but McCarthy is a good option for sure.
Yeah, so I'm assuming if that's like the Rangers shopping, a guy like I assume Flacco's long gone.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Brock Purdy's been stashed, probably never dropped. So yeah, I think you're just picking your poison between Mariota, Darnold, McCarthy, Rodgers, Jacoby Brissett, even like a Michael Penix. I think that's kind of the range you're shopping in. And it seems like JJ might not always look pretty, but he seems like a guy with the rushing ability, the overall touchdown output with the weapons and whatnot, as good an option as any. So I think personally, I probably would go JJ as well, but I think in this range, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Should they drop Bill for TreVeyon Henderson?
Ooh, this is a tough one. We were talking down on Bill and talking up TreVeyon earlier, but I still have to go with Bill just because he has. You could put him in the lineup. I guess. This is tough though. At the end of the day, if this is a pure upside play, then it has to be Henderson.
Yeah, I'm going Henderson. I am going to go Henderson because at this point, like, no one can tell me with any certainty that Chris Rodriguez isn't going to get more touches over Bill.
Yeah.
Bill doesn't have the draft capital, the resume. Maybe we're seeing he doesn't have the talent to warrant bell cow status. Henderson, at least we believe in the talent. Henderson, we at least love the schedule. So, yeah, I'm dropping Bill for Henderson, no doubt.
Yeah. Thinking about it more, I'm all in on Henderson.
Got a contender, 1 QB dynasty start, 3-2 flex behind CD Lamb. Olave in his wide receiver room is pretty weak. Any good wide receiver thoughts? So good pillars in Olave and CD Lamb in this 1 QB dynasty when you have to start up to 5 wide receivers. So what are some targets he could go after at that position?
Some targets at the wide receiver position rest of season. I assume we're probably not going super expensive guys. Jordan Addison, Stephon Diggs, Wan'Dale Robinson. These guys all obviously vary in price significantly. Quentin Johnston. There's plenty of guys. Troy Franklin, Rashid Shaheed, Romeo Dobbs. It's just such a broad question. It's kind of hard for me to narrow it down here. I guess my favorite out of that bunch, maybe Troy Franklin or Steph Diggs.
Yeah, I think Steph Diggs is my favorite. We talked about him pretty extensively on a past episode. Yeah, I think you've named a bunch. Just to throw out a couple more that might come pretty cheap. Christian Watson, good schedule for the Packers for receivers rest of the season. Alec Pierce, we talked about him. I still think his value is pretty down in Dynasty. People don't really believe it to be something that's fruitful, something predictable for the rest of the season. So I think you can get him pretty cheaply. And another target, too, I don't think we should shy away from Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams has been dreadful. Super nice schedule upcoming, so maybe the value is down enough. You got the extension, going to be around for a little while, so that might be another one that you could go after. Kicker question, baby. Let's go. Drop Kaimi Fairbairn for a new kicker or hold him until he's healthy?
Never carry 2 kickers.
Philosophically, I agree. I will say in use in the trenches, I would rather stash Kaimi Fairbairn than if you're stashing just a complete who gives a crap wide receiver. So if your decision is should I hold on to Jordan Whittington or Kaimi Fairbairn, I'm going to keep Fairbairn. If your decision is,
there's a running back out there. Come on. Unless this is like a really deep league.
I wouldn't be so sure. Listen, it does have to be a deep league. So this is what I'm talking about here. But I mean, let's say if I can give you a running back. So if on my team I got Justice Hill, He's on the back of my bench. I'm keeping Kaimi Fairbairn. Kaimi Fairbairn's been pretty damn good at kicking.
That's fine, I guess. Honestly, I don't really
but it's
look
got to be
at
stank.
kicker production all that much. But yeah.
Yeah, but I also agree with you philosophically. We're not keeping two kickers. Full point PPR, 2 quarterbacks, or QB, 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end. And Fergie, who should I start this week? So set the lineup for Robson.
Okay. Josh Allen is your quarterback. Receivers, you're starting Puka, obviously. You're starting Olave, clearly. Running backs, you're starting CMC and Chase Brown. The flex, you're looking at hopefully Monongai if Swift is out. Otherwise, I'd go with Addison. And then the tight end, I would go with Ferg.
2 more questions and we'll get out of here. Do I trade CD to get Tet and Waddle, and he needs a win?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one. In these types of scenarios, I really like to hear what your...
We need some context. We need context.
If you make this deal...
Who's Waddle improving?
Yeah, exactly. Who are you taking out of your lineup to put in Tet and Waddle?
Yeah, we need to know. Let us know.
But this is solid value, though, if you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think trade calculator-wise, you'd get a win on this, or it'd be pretty damn even. Doesn't matter the format. Redraft Dynasty, I think this, again, has a lot of validity to it. So I think in a vacuum, if we don't get more context, we will... If we don't get much context, I think I'm going to do it in terms of the value, just value for value. And as we wait for some context, let's just finish this question. Is there any punishment for a player that goes on IR, such as you lose pay, lose bonus? I agree there isn't a punishment to put them on IR and open a raw spot unless it's gamemanship. Is this NFL? This must be we were just talking about the IR for NFL.
I certainly don't want to see players get penalized for getting injured. I want to see more guaranteed contracts, and this sounds like it's going the other way. So I'd be against that.
Yeah, I think I'd be against it. Now, in terms of your fantasy league, you want to
if you want to punish teams for it, I honestly I just don't get it. It's injuries; they're random.
Yeah, I think we just need to add some flexibility, some addendums to the IR spot. Baseball does the retroactive thing. I think a retroactive plus minus would help out. Where
that's a great idea.
If they've already missed 3 weeks, you could put them on the IR, and maybe he only misses 2 more weeks as opposed to an additional 4. It's just it's just tough because competitors want to compete, so they're going to say the things that can get them on the field. There's just a lot of people factors, if you will. So the question was, it was a question response to your comment about why not put Pierce on the, yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about. So
I think your idea with the retroactive thing is brilliant. I didn't even think about that. Besides that,
baseball.
I was really just talking about that. I want more transparency so I know what the injuries are as opposed to them stringing us along with DNP-knee. That really pisses me off.
If you are going to take all of my money when my parlay doesn't hit because of the information not being crystal clear, then I want the information to be crystal clear. Do you get what I'm saying? If you can benefit from the fog of the decision making, then I should be able to make sure that it's one, either I can benefit from it as well. You got to be fair if I'm going to give you my money, or 2, make it crystal clear. Don't put me out there up shit's creek without a paddle with these injuries.
Another horrible example of that this year was also the 49ers. It's becoming a bit of a trend, by the way. Jawan Jennings, just right after a game, reveals to the media that his
body's broken. Every bone in his body's disintegrated.
All we heard was limited practice - ribs/ankle. That's all we knew. But then Jennings tells us after the game that no, he has 5 broken ribs, a high ankle sprain, and a low ankle sprain. I'm sure there was no suspicious betting with that one. Definitely not.
Not a little bit at all. But that's it. That's going to do it. Those are the questions. Those are the segments. This is the game plan. Every single fantasy manager out there, I don't care if it's your first year or your 20th year, come tune in, hang out with us so we can give you the edge to get the wins against your jabroni league mates. So make sure you are subscribed to the Player Profiler channel. Make sure you like this video. Leave a comment. Let us know who are some of your biggest risers and fallers rest of season. Evan, let the people know where they can find you.
at Evan Ringler FF on Twitter. All my work is at playerprofiler.com and on this YouTube channel. And then check out Fast Draft. A lot of cool DFS stuff going on over there.
Fast Draft, use the code GAME. Help yourself out here. So get that. I would say, I'd plug my Twitter, but I still don't have it back. I was hacked. So I'm trying to get it back. If anyone out there has any connection at Twitter, knows Elon, let your boy know. But in the meantime, again, subscribe, like, comment, do all the good things here. And people, friends, family, everyone tuning in, keep game planning. And we will see you next week for week 11 on the game plan.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.